Hi everyone, welcome to tonight's webinar, ADHD Coaching, everything you always wanted to know but were afraid to ask. My name is Zoë Kessler and I'll be your host this evening on behalf of PsychCentral.com. Now before I introduce our presenter, I'd like to welcome everybody and also remind you that you will be able to access a complete webinar online at PsychCentral's YouTube channel a little later this week. Now, if you haven't already checked it out, PsychCentral does have lots of videos and webinars on a wide variety of mental health topics with guest speakers from many disciplines. During tonight's webinar, I'd like to invite you to just feel free to ask questions by typing them into the questionnaire on your control panel. So type in your questions anytime they occur to you, anytime you like, and we will try to make sure that we answer everyone's questions, but we will also do our best to wrap up the session within an hour. Our presenter will present for about 40 minutes, and then the question and answer period will follow. So, Mark Jones is an ADHD coach and founder of Anchored Awareness ADHD Coaching. He's extremely passionate about and dedicated toward helping adults, teens, and families who are struggling with ADHD by providing them with hope and genuine understanding, as well as walking alongside them as their guide from the side on their journey of personal discovery. Recently diagnosed with ADHD himself, Mark understands and relates to the struggles, uncertainties, fears, and apprehensions that come with such a diagnosis. Having worked with an ADHD coach in the treatment of his own ADHD, Mark has personally experienced the life-changing transformations that can be achieved through ADHD coaching. And full disclosure, Mark Jones is my ADHD coach. We just started working together, oh gosh, I don't know, Mark, you're there, right? Oh, just over 3 months ago, I guess. And yeah, and I had lots of questions before I started with our coaching session, so I just sort of thought this was a really good opportunity for you folks to meet Mark and have immense questions, and also some of those that I have remaining. So now, without further ado, hi Mark.
Hi Zoe, how are you?
I'm great, and I'm really grateful that you agreed to do this. I'm just thrilled, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to all the folks showing up tonight and listening after the fact at the YouTube channel for PsychCentral.
Perfect.
So I guess without further ado, I'm going to switch over the controls to you so that you can jump into your presentation. And I'll mute myself, but if you want to talk to me, that's okay. I will unmute myself, and all right, over to you.
Okay, so you can see my screen, right?
Yep, you see it.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Zoe, and also thank you to everyone that is in attendance tonight, as well as anyone that might be watching this on the PsychCentral YouTube channel, as Zoe had mentioned. And also, speaking of PsychCentral, I would like to thank them as well for providing me with this opportunity to share some insight and awareness in relation to ADHD coaching. So, as Zoe has mentioned, my name is Mark Jones. I am an ADHD coach and also the founder of Anchored Awareness ADHD Coaching here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. My role here this evening is to just provide a general overview of ADHD coaching, so that by the time the presentation's over, you'll have a pretty good understanding of what ADHD coaching is, what it isn't, how it works, the benefits of ADHD coaching, how neuroscience and ADHD coaching go hand in hand, as well as looking at the cost of coaching itself versus, the reality of living a life with untreated ADHD and what the costs are of that. So, well, let's get right into it. And we're here, as I said, to look at what is ADHD coaching. Okay, well, of all the definitions that I've come across, the one that I like the best comes from a gentleman by the name of David Gewerk. He is the president of ADD Coach Academy, and he's a master coach himself. And coincidentally, the ADD Coach Academy is also the organization in which I received my own ADHD coach training, but that's not why I like his definition. Okay, I like David's definition because of the words that he uses and the way that the definition really lends itself for deeper exploration to get a better understanding of what those words mean. So let's just look at his definition. So David defines ADHD coaching as an ongoing collaborative partnership created to facilitate personal growth and awareness that leads to conscious choice, focused action, and a meaningful, rewarding life. Pretty sweet. It's a really nice definition, and as I said, the combination of words that he uses wants you to look a bit deeper into it, and then that works nicely for this evening's presentation, and that's what I'm going to do. Okay, we're going to look at what he means by collaborative partnership. We're going to look at the facilitation of personal growth and awareness. We're going to look at conscious choice, focused action, and what it means to have a meaningful and rewarding life all through the boundaries of ADHD coaching. So here we go. Ongoing collaborative partnership. Specifically, for our purposes, that partnership is a relationship between the client and the ADHD coach. Now, because this is a collaborative partnership, that means that the client and the coach are working together. This is not a relationship in which the client sits back and the coach solves all their problems. Okay, this is a relationship in which the client and the coach work together. Okay, and the purpose of that togetherness, the purpose of that collaboration, is with the sole purpose of moving toward a common goal or a common outcome, and that comes from the client. So the client is specifically bringing a few things to this relationship. The first being the client is bringing a sense of readiness. And what I mean by readiness is that the client recognizes that there is something missing from their life and that they want to change it. Generally, a client does not come to an ADHD coach because everything is awesome. Okay, someone seeks out an ADHD coach's services because of this, because there is something missing. There's something that needs to change in their life. Whether they've tried many, many things before and have failed and are seeking the coach as just the next logical step, or perhaps someone has, had the benefits of a coach themselves and have said, hey, this might work for you. But either way, the client is bringing that readiness, and that's very important. Okay, and that's important because it's one thing to recognize that something needs to change in your life. It's one thing to want that change to happen. But if that's all that's in place, then really the success of that relationship is not going to be very good. And the reason I say that is because aside from the readiness, the client also has to bring with them willingness, specifically a willingness to effect change. Okay, so the client recognizes something is missing, they recognize that what is missing, that they want to change it, but they're also willing to effect that change. Okay, they're willing to put in the work that needs to be put in to make that change happen. And that's very important. And it's willingness. This is not something that is saying that the client has to believe it will happen. The client doesn't even have to bring a sense of faith that it will happen. It is something as simple as willingness, meaning, are you at least willing to put in the work that needs to be done to make that change happen? Because from that willingness, in time and throughout the partnership, that willingness will slowly move into belief, and then also in time that willingness will move from belief into faith. And that isn't in relation to the coach, that's in relation to the client. A willingness to effect change, a belief that they can effect that change, and a faith that they can effect that change. because all of this is about the client. What the coach brings to the relationship is, first and foremost, they are not the expert. And I'm not saying that they are not an expert in ADHD. I mean, that's, as an ADHD coach, that'd be kind of silly for me to say that I'm not an expert in ADHD coaching. I've received my training. I am working towards certification. I understand clearly how ADHD works. I mean, all of that stuff, yes, you know, I'm bringing that expertise in. But what I am not an expert in is the client. So if you're my client, I am not an expert in your life. You are an expert in your life. What I see when I see you as the client is I see someone that is creative, resourceful, and whole, meaning I have absolute faith that you are more than capable of effecting that change that you want to. You might not see it, but as your coach, I see it. I have a genuine, I don't know how to say it differently, but I genuinely want you to see that. That is my goal, honestly, is to get you to see what I see in you. And it can happen. Okay, but I would not be a good coach if I claimed to be an expert on your life and if I just sat there and told you how to solve your problems. Okay, because if I did that, then that means I don't see you as creative, resourceful, and whole. That means I see you as completely incompetent, without any skills or abilities to do anything for yourself to change your life. And that's not a good place for a coach to be coming in with a client. Okay, I'm just going to take a drink of water, sorry. What I am specifically, I like to look at myself as a choice architect. Pretty cool term, no? Essentially what that is, you know, my role is to help you see choices. Because trust me, having ADHD myself, I know what it's like to essentially not believe that we have a choice at anything at all in our life. That everything is dictated, run by, subject to, and destroyed by our ADHD. But that's because that's all we see. That's all we know. Okay? And if, as a coach, I just tell you what to do or tell you how to fix things or tell you how to solve things, then I am not giving you any choice. I am just playing into that concept. Okay? I'm just telling you your old story. Whereas by providing choice, by providing the ability for you to see that there are choices, that works towards me seeing you as creative, resourceful, and whole. So that's a very general understanding of the relationship or the partnership between the client and the coach. But what I think it does do, it does at least provide a nice way of understanding that a relationship like that is created, as David says, to facilitate personal growth and awareness. Okay? I asked my clients to kind of help me out on this part here because I wanted to know from them, is there any value that I bring to our coaching, like to our partnership, outside of me just being the ADHD coach? You know, because to me, that's where I see the value that ends up facilitating that personal growth and awareness. So one of my clients said that Mark, as an ADHD coach, provides an extremely emotionally and physically safe place to sort and process anything that I'm dealing with. And then another client said something that I thought was amazingly similar. She said, I knew that we had connected in such a way that this was a safe place for me. He was going to walk that path with me without judgments or lectures or anything I might expect from someone hearing all this. So there's a very common theme between these two quotes. So what we see is that the relationship between an ADHD coach and a client is a relationship that ends up providing a safe and non-judgmental space for the client to process and explore. And that is extremely important because as someone with ADHD, we have a lot of stuff, especially if you've lived most of your life with untreated ADHD. For myself, I was only diagnosed with ADHD 3 years ago, so I'm 41 now. That's 38. That's a long time. It's a long time living without treating my ADHD. So of course, we bring with us to the coaching relationship a lot of stuff, yeah, you know, and it's very rare to find someone with which we can share that stuff.
Mark?
Generally when we have conversations, yep.
Sorry, would you mind if I jumped in here for a sec? Would that throw you off
Sure.
totally? Oh, that's great, because we got a question that I thought would be most appropriate right at this point, if you don't mind. It's about the definition itself. Are you okay with that? It's
yeah, sure.
The question is, the definition of ADHD coaching doesn't include any mention of ADHD. How is this model of coaching distinctly beneficial for ADHD? Do you want to field that now or save it till later?
No, it's okay. I'll overcome my own ADHD at this point and just go with the flow. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to leave the slide here where we are because then that will really throw me off. But I'll address the question, and it's a very valid question. The definition itself doesn't speak specifically to ADHD, only because I'm pretty sure before the ellipses he does say the word ADHD coaching. But I get what you're asking, and that's simply coaching is coaching. I mean, generally that definition applies to, I would say it even applies to any type of coaching. The reason that ADHD coaching is different than just normal coaching, like life coaching or business coaching or whatever, is the fact that as an ADHD coach, I have formal training and I am working towards formal certification that specifically relates to ADHD. So the training that I received through the ADHD Coach Academy is specifically focused on ADHD itself in combination with basic coaching principles. But the key being that I get a very good understanding of ADHD, how it affects people, and how to really coach to the ADHD, okay, versus a business coach who's going to probably have some understanding in relation to math and numbers and whatever else business stuff is out there, right? But that's my expertise. So I could still coach someone who doesn't have ADHD and still use that definition because I'm a strong believer in that definition and in its value. But being an ADHD coach specifically means that I would be a much better coach for someone who is looking to have their ADHD dealt with, meaning you want treatment, you want coaching for your ADHD. Hopefully that answers the question.
Great. Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, is the person able to let you know if I answered it or no?
Well, they can hear us, so if you want to let us know, that'd be great. We should probably move on. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. But thank you for that. Okay, safe and non-judgmental space to process and explore. So as I was saying, this to me is the most important part of the relationship, because I truly believe it is something very rare that someone can find in their life, where they can find someone, and specifically with a coach for an hour, where they feel absolutely safe to explore their own thoughts, to explore what is going on, to talk about their obstacles, to talk about what's bothering them, to talk about the frustrations that their ADHD is presenting to them, how to overcome it, all of that stuff with someone whose sole purpose is to just be there with them. Because I get it, I understand it, I've gone through it myself. And I know the value that that has, and that's the gift. You know, for me it is a gift. It was a gift for me to receive it, and it's awesome to be able to provide that to someone as well. You know, so to me, that safe and that non-judgmental space is so important. You know, that's worth its weight in gold. And also from the relationship, you get, I think I had even mentioned this in my answer to the question, is that the client gets a much better understanding of their own ADHD. Okay, because ADHD, yes, it is, you know, its definition of ADHD is the same, but everyone has their own flavor, their own brand, if you want to use that term for it. How ADHD affects me is very different than how it affects somebody else. The impact that my ADHD has on my life is not going to necessarily be the same for the impacts that someone else's ADHD has on their life. So that becomes part of the exploration. That becomes part of the process, is to walk with the client through those struggles, through the thought processes, and be able to provide that kind of outside perspective and to reflect back and to share what I'm observing while they're going through that, so that together there is this deeper understanding, this deeper awareness of the client's ADHD and how it impacts them. And then also, through awareness, you end up expanding your world. And what I mean by that is, really, I mean, in the end, so much of our untreated ADHD creates a massive amount of guilt, shame, huge low self-esteem, all through the experiences that we've gone through the failures, through the disappointments, through the broken promises. You know, just all of that stuff adds up. And it creates a very, very limited map of our world. You know, our world ends up being, if all we focus on, if all we see is our failures, then that's it. You know, the illuminated terrain for us is essentially illuminated by those failures, yet there are so many other things in our life. There are things that we are good at. There are our strengths. There are our successes. All these things that we don't pay attention to because we've invested so much time in their opposites. So working with a coach and exploring that space, you know, as a coach, pointing out someone's successes, saying to them, hey, you know what, though, that is an amazing thing that you did. That awareness ends up illuminating much more of the landscape. Okay, so that awareness expands your world map. You get a better handle on the world that you're living in, and you get a much better space to live within as well. Okay, and this brings us to the conscious choice. Okay, so in David's definition, we have the ongoing collaborative partnership created to facilitate personal growth and awareness that leads to, first one is conscious choice. Okay, so by conscious choice, I want to talk about acceptance, and specifically how acceptance equals freedom. In the previous slide, I was talking about how when all we see is our failures, then our world is very small, and our awareness then expands that world. Okay, we get an understanding of our ADHD. But a bigger obstacle that can end up happening is if we still don't accept it. I can point out as a coach, I can say to someone, you made it to work on time. That is awesome. And I'm not being facetious. I'm not trivializing it. I am truly genuine when I commend someone for something like that. Because you know what, for someone with ADHD, that's a big deal. For me, opening my mail is a big deal. That's a success. A day when I actually open my mail is a successful day for me. But I need to be able to accept that that is a success. Okay, because that acceptance provides freedom. And what I mean is that, you know, I can know that I have ADHD. I can say, yes, I've got ADHD. These are the limitations of my life. Okay? But I can also sit there and choose to fight it. I can keep running up against the fence thinking that I can break through and get to this world that exists beyond somehow not having ADHD. Or I can accept that I have ADHD. I can accept what comes with it. And through that acceptance, I can live freely within that world. And for me, this concept, I mean, this might just be something that is my own. I don't know if any other coaches feel this specifically, but for me, this hits home only because I've been sober since 2007. And the only way I was able to do that was to accept that I can't drink safely. I tried to fight that. And like I said, all I spent was my life banging against the fence, hoping to somehow break free, really not living a very free life. But upon acceptance, all the world within that fenced area becomes available to live within, and to live within freely. You know, that freedom provides for conscious choice. Because now I can choose to do things instead of, you know, being really subject to my ADHD. By knowing my ADHD, by knowing how it impacts my life, and working towards putting in place structures and strategies and supports, I am then able to make conscious choices instead of just being subject to the impulsiveness of my ADHD. So I hope I made sense on that. If not, please, please, please contact me, and I would love to discuss it further. Oh, I'm going backwards. My apologies. Okay. Also with conscious choice, we have what is known as the power of insight. More specifically, the aha moments. And as an ADHD coach, this stuff is insanely powerful. And I am extremely grateful to be able to be a part of aha moments with a client. And this is where neuroscience is going to come in. And what I mean by that is, as I've mentioned before, with ADHD, specifically years upon years of untreated ADHD, we have developed very ingrained thought patterns. You know, expecting failure, expecting the other shoe to drop, wondering when things are going to go back to being miserable when we have days when they're going well, you know, expecting to not complete assignments, expecting to hand things in late, expecting to not basically accomplish anything. These are deeply ingrained thought patterns that we just habitually go towards. And the reason we do that is because our brain is lazy. Our brain enjoys not thinking. You know, that's why we're able to drive without really thinking, because we have learned how to do it and we've done it repetitively, that it just becomes automatic to us. And that frees up our brain to be able to focus on what it needs to focus on, which is other drivers and whatnot. So we kind of just coast through our life with our ADHD, walking in those well-worn paths of, failure and guilt and shame and all that other not so fun stuff that we have. So insights help to destroy that. And what I mean is that insights are a new way of, they are generated when a client comes up with the solution themselves, okay? It's not, an insight doesn't happen when a coach says, oh, hey, you might want to do this, okay? Because then that is simply just, okay, thanks, coach, I'll try it. And if it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, you suck. But it's still not something that the client can contribute to themselves. It wasn't something that they came up with. There's no ownership of it. But an insight, that's something that a client comes up with on their own. That's something where the client is like, wait a minute. I get it. I see it. That's the impact. And that impact ends up having much more value to it. And also and the reason I'm kind of skipping past the insight thing is we're going to get into it a bit further, but solutions, not problems. Conscious choice also comes from the fact that if we just focus on the problems, then all we're doing is we're further etching those paths. If all we focus on is why do I keep failing, then we're just further digging in that path versus looking at the possible solutions. And this is what I meant when I call myself a choice architect. Okay, being a choice architect works in combination with providing solutions. Not me saying, do this, this is your solution, but working with the client to see the choices that lie within a possible solution. So we don't sit and just dig into the problem. We explore, and through the exploration, solutions present themselves. The client is able to see those. That creates insight as well. That allows for the brain to start saying, oh, I've got to actually sit here and do some work and forge new pathways. Every possible solution, every possibility becomes a new pathway. So the brain actually has to work. And that's what we want. We want the brain to work. We want the brain to start looking at kicking itself out of those old patterns and forming new ones. And this brings us to the focused action. So we already said that the ongoing collaborative partnership facilitates personal growth and awareness, leads to conscious choice, focused action, okay? And by focused action, really powerful questions is the key. Powerful questions meaning, as a coach, what I love doing is just asking questions. Not always so awesome for the client, who at times does kind of want to just, can you please just tell me what you're trying to get at? I don't have the time to do this, or I don't have the energy. But trust me, by sticking to just asking questions, it is amazing how much progress gets made in the relationship, in the work towards that personal growth and awareness. Okay, because what I'm doing by asking questions is getting the client to generate new ways of thinking. And as I discussed before, that is forcing the brain to sit and do some work, to not just fall back on old habits. So when a powerful question is asked to a client, they got to sit and think. And generally, a lot of the times, that the thoughts that are required are thoughts that they're generally not accustomed to or really haven't tried to incorporate. Okay? And that new way of thinking ends up being a catalyst for self-directed discovery. And this is why it's so important. And I touched on this already. It's the client discovers what needs to be discovered. It is self-directed, meaning that you as the client discover the solution, which then allows you to start to see that it is something you are capable of, that you do have the ability to find those solutions, that they exist within you, that there isn't just simply another failure waiting, but that there's the possibility of countless successes or other means of overcoming obstacles and challenges. That there is something different than what you've been used to. And since the brain loves to reward itself, when new thoughts are put in place, then the brain ends up, there's a boost of adrenaline because those new circuits are firing. And that's nice because that keeps us going. That helps us to see that there is benefit to this way of thinking. There is encouragement. You know, having ADHD, we already lack the ability to really generate our own motivation internally. Okay? But that doesn't mean that we can't think in new ways of thinking. It doesn't mean that we can't find new discoveries. It doesn't mean we lack the ability to create new circuits and get that adrenaline boost to keep us going. Focused action also comes from our shifts in thinking. Okay, so when we have those insights that I was talking about, when we have those aha moments, we can't just say, that was awesome, that was cool, I never thought about it that way. You have completely, you know, helped me to see things in a whole new way. My world has been rocked. I will never be the same. And then hang up the phone and go on with the rest of your life. That insight was still valuable. It's still there. Hopefully it planted a seed to continue further exploration. But my role as a coach is to not only help facilitate that insight, but I also have to help move you forward to really keep that insight entrenched. Okay, and the reason being is that for any type of insight to have a lasting impact, there's a requirement of consistency of focus and application, meaning we still have to create a consistent focus on that new way of thinking. You need to incorporate ways of applying that new way of thinking in your life, hence focused action. The actions that come from that insight are specific. Okay? The insight needs to have recognition of it, affirmation of it, and internalization of it. Meaning that, first of all, we not only have to help recognize that it was an insight, that it is an aha moment, but we also need to affirm it. We also need to give it its due, to recognize its value and importance, and make sure that it is internalized. This is a self-directed discovery. It was not the coach saying, hey, there's a burning bush, you are totally enlightened now, go forth and rock the world. No, it is coming from the client. You need to see that that insight is something that you came up with. And because of that, it then becomes part of who you are. It expands your world, generates more awareness, gives you much wider area to exist within, but it also works towards becoming a new part of who you are. Those insights are an amazing means of being able to rewrite your story. Because those insights are insights that say, I am capable. You know what? I have done this. I can do that. I set out a goal to do this. I achieved that goal, and I achieved that goal because of me and because of the work that I put into it. I am capable. That is the new identity. That's why it needs this work to be put into it. You can't just let them sit, be awesome for a moment, and then fade back into non-existence. Because unless the insight is internalized, then it ends up being something that really is considered lucky or coincidence instead of something that is truly from you as a person. And then finally, from all of this stuff, ADHD coaching will provide a meaningful and rewarding life. Okay? Creating new experiences consistently will alter neural pathways and alter neurotransmitter patterns. Again, here's the neuroscience, but it falls back to what we were just discussing. New experiences, new way of doing things, applying those and creating them consistently in our life will create new pathways, new ways of thinking, and they will also create new patterns. Okay, so we will not exist within the entrenched patterns of our past. We can exist within the new ones that we've formed. And then also small wins. Small wins are like I was saying to you earlier. You know, opening my mail is a small win. And if I just trivialize that, then I'm not helping to tell myself that I am capable of change. Okay, because doing the same thing would just essentially be not opening my mail. But opening it is change, and that's a small win. And small wins are important in the relationship because small wins create a structure that then allow other habits to flourish. So we build upon them and build upon them and build upon them. We give those small successes their due and their importance, and then they will help spread throughout our life to further change, to reinforce to us that we can do it. And finally, the cost. This is not part of David's definition, but it is something that I did indicate I wanted to quickly address in tonight's presentation. And what it comes down to, honestly, is generally the cost of ADHD coaching does realistically become a barrier. Having ADHD and having untreated ADHD, I don't think I'm alone. I am alone in my financial difficulties. Okay? Generally, people with ADHD are not super awesome at managing their finances. And some of the difficulties that come with ADHD coaching is the cost of ADHD coaching itself. I'm not going to lie and say that it is totally cheap because it's not. ADHD coaching is a service. It is a, it is a service that is provided people much like any other service, and there is a cost associated to it. I can't speak to other coaches in terms of how much they charge, but on average, you would be looking at anywhere from $75 to $125 on average for an ADHD coaching session. Okay, and that can be expensive. But what I don't want, and really the sole reason of this slide is, I just don't want you denying yourself the opportunity to at least contact an ADHD coach before writing off the entire process, just because of the cost. Pretty much 99.9% of the coaches out there do offer a free consultation, meaning anywhere from 20 minutes to 30 minutes you have with the coach for free, where you can ask them anything you want. The coach gets a better understanding of who you are and really what you want from coaching, and you get a better sense of who that coach is, how they work, what their experiences are, and what their credentials are, and you get a good sense of them as a coach, because that is important. Okay, and that's free. That doesn't cost you anything. So what I encourage you to do is to not let the cost that you see be a barrier to the process. Because for free, you can still contact the coach and talk to them. And you may find that they have sliding scale fees, or that they have scholarship programs, or that they can work with you to come up with a different way of pricing it out. But all that you will not know until you contact the coach. So please, please, please don't let the cost of coaching be something that stops you from at least looking into it. Because the cost of living your life with untreated ADHD is extremely expensive. And I can only speak for myself. But, you know, failed job opportunities, countless years of substance abuse and alcoholism, divorce, car accidents, unpaid bills, debt collectors, credit card interest fees, missed promotions, and the list goes on and on and on. And that's pretty expensive too. You know, so give it a chance. Contact the coach, you know, visit their website, see if they offer a free consultation, and just, you know, take advantage of that opportunity. You know, because it's completely worth it. I know that doesn't sound, you know, a great sales pitch, but I'm just saying, you know, from a person with ADHD who has a coach themselves, it is completely worth it. Okay? And with that, I'd just like to thank you all for attending tonight, and I'll be free to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Can you hear me? It's Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Do you have, I guess your website address is anchoredawareness.com?
Right.
Okay,
yep.
Yeah, it's kind of tiny there, so I wanted to make sure everybody saw that. That's great.
Okay.
So thanks very much for your presentation. I guess we'll just leave your slide up for a few minutes. Let's see, how much time do we have? Oh gosh, about 13 minutes. No, it's great. It's fine.
Okay.
So let's jump into the questions then right away, I guess.
Sure. Yep.
First of all, we do have a comment. Let me just open the panel. One of the participants said, congratulations on your sobriety.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, that is amazing. Great. And okay. Oh, good. Here's another one that actually I have a few questions too. But another participant asks, "May I know what are the powerful questions? Is it possible for you to give some examples?" And I was looking for some examples too.
I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of them. But I mean, I guess if we just picked a really basic example, it would be, for example, someone comes to you and says, "You know, I just can't plan. I can't plan around anything." You know, and for me, I could say to them, well, why don't you make a list, or have you tried productivity apps? Whereas a powerful question is more, what does a plan mean to you? Like, how do you define a plan? Because what I think of as a plan might be very different for someone. You know, so it gets them to sit there and explore and say, okay, well, I guess a plan is doing this or doing that. Adam, yeah. I don't know if that makes it sounds not as awesome as I thought it would. Powerful questions are just really the essence of them is to dig deeper, you know, for someone to say, I'm not good at, you know, okay, but, you know, have you been good in the past at that? You know, so I'm not a good sports player. Okay, well, has there ever been a time when you felt you were a good sports player?
I think, Mark, what we're looking for, and I would like some specific, I think just anecdotes maybe, if you can, share from some of the clients that you've worked with. So, for example, I was wondering if you mentioned a new way of thinking for a client. So specifically, can you give us an example of a client who has a new way of thinking, and then I guess a corollary to that is how did you keep that new way of thinking in their life specifically? So tell us a story of somebody's success.
One client I had, they had problems keeping appointments, so keeping track of tasks that they were responsible for, whether that was, doctor's appointments or, studying for whatever course they were taking. And they had mentioned that, they do have a calendar, but on that calendar are appointments and commitments for other people. And I had just asked, what is the criteria for your appointments and your own personal commitments to go on that calendar? So it's not me asking why aren't they putting them on there, but it's me asking them, is there something specific that needs to be in place before you put your own commitments and your own personal obligations on that calendar? And what ended up coming from the thought process from that client is that other people were more important.
There's one of those powerful questions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they didn't see that putting their own personal commitments were worth paying attention to, that other people's were more important. And then that became the jumping off point to consistently work towards, and this is that focused action, to work with the client to make the inclusion of their own personal commitments and obligations be a part of that calendar. Because that ends up reinforcing to them their sense of worth.
That's cool.
That's that shift in thinking, right?
Yeah. Interesting. I want to invite everybody. We've only got about 8 minutes left, so if you do have any questions, please feel free to write them in the question box, and we will do our best to briefly answer all of them. So thanks, Mark. Here's another one. So what should you ask your coach before signing on? Like, what kind of credentials or experience or background should they have, just really briefly? Is there something?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
Definitely, the one problem with ADHD coaching or coaching in general is it's not governed, so anyone can call themselves a coach, right? So I could just simply say, hey, I've got ADHD, therefore I'm an ADHD coach. But you don't want that as a coach. What you want is you want your coach to be able to provide to you, that they have received formal training in ADHD and in coaching. So as I mentioned, the ADHD Coach Academy is an organization that provides coach training, but specifically ADHD coach training. So I would be able to provide, certification, show them that I, have received my training from this group. They're a group that is recognized by the International Coach Federation, so it's not just a fly-by-night operation. You also want to see if your coach has any certification. Don't be alarmed if they say no, because myself, I haven't achieved certification yet, but that's only because I haven't met the coaching hour requirements to be able to apply for that certification. It's because there's a certain number of coaching hours that you need to be able to apply for certification. But you can ask, okay, well, how many hours do you currently have? You can ask them if any of their clients would be willing to vouch for you or provide a reference or something. I definitely encourage you find a coach who has at least a presence in social media. They don't have to have 20 million accounts, but at least that they're engaging with the community. I use Facebook a fair bit, and I also blog fairly regularly on my website, so that provides other means of people being able to get to know me, because I can't just expect someone to immediately sign up with me for coaching. There's a relationship. Someone has to feel comfortable first. So I provide other ways for them to get to know me. My blog, honestly, would be a really great way for people to get a better sense of who I am and where I'm coming from. So if your coach doesn't have a blog, that might be something you would kind of hope that they do. But the big thing is just, are they specifically trained in ADHD, and are they working towards certification?
Okay, so presumably there are other schools, as it were, or organizations that train specifically ADHD coaches?
Yes, there's like Coach U. They're another big organization that does coaching, and then you can get ADHD-related training. But ADCA, the ADHD Coach Academy, is the biggest one in terms of ADHD-specific coaching.
Okay, great. And also, once you've started coaching, when does that relationship end, the client-coach relationship?
That's generally worked out at the beginning of the relationship. Some coaches will ask people to commit to 6 months. I myself ask at least for a commitment of 3 months. And the reason that I ask for that is, because change doesn't just happen overnight. I'm not against someone who just wants to sign up for 1 month, but really, the amount of change that will happen in that 1 month is not going to be a lot compared to the wider amount of time, which was generally 3 months, where you then do get a good sense of how far you've come, the value of the relationship, and then from that point you could just sign up for a month-by-month basis. So.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you have ADHD, and I know other ADHD coaches who, let me think, do I know any who don't? No, I don't. So I guess the question is it better to have a coach who also has ADHD or not? Does it matter? Like who themselves has ADHD? Because presumably other people can learn about it, but is there...
I mean, this is only me personally. I can't vouch for other coaches out there, but I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say that a coach, an ADHD coach that has ADHD is going to have a much better understanding of who you are as a client, because they will get it. They will deep down, without, just giving you an, oh, that's, they're there type pat on the back, but someone that really, really gets it, someone that can completely relate.
Okay, you know what? I want to, it's not just your personal, guess what? We do have a participant here who says, comment, Mark is currently my coach.
Nice.
To the first person who asked the question, I think that an ADHD-specific coach can see the ADHD patterns in my life. Once I began to focus on the ADHD pattern, I was able to address a series of issues that seemed previously unconnected.
Nice.
Wow, that's cool. And you're their coach. Cool. Well, thank you for that.
That's all them. That's all them.
That's really, yeah, here's your $10. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding, everybody, honestly. All right, let's see. We've only got a couple of minutes left, Mark. So, geez, I guess we'll invite everybody to contact you at your website if they have more questions. Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
by all means, please contact me whenever.
anchoredawareness.com, and you've got a, I don't know, a form on there that they can put
There's a contact form that they can go to, and then also on my website is, there's links to all my social media accounts, so they can reach me through Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and all that stuff. So.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, Mark, I want to thank you so very much for doing this for us tonight. I really, really do appreciate it. And yeah, and I would like to remind everybody that there is a replay of tonight's webinar. I'll get that posted at PsychCentral's YouTube channel probably, well, later this week, we'll say. And I want to thank everyone who attended live tonight. It just seemed like the hour went so quickly. And I'd like to also thank those of you who are listening to the replay of tonight's webinar. I too would like to thank PsychCentral for hosting these webinars. We have them once a month, generally towards the end of the month on a Monday night, and it's, as I mentioned, it's always a different special guest presenter. And last but not least, I saved the best for last. Thank you very much to tonight's special guest presenter, ADHD coach Mark Jones. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a delight. And on behalf of, yeah, thanks, we'll have to. And on behalf of PsychCentral.com and me, Zoë Kessler, thanks everyone, and we'll see you again.